Alright, I'm going to do a little bit of a longer video since I haven't done a longer video for a while on a 2000 Ford F-350 with a 7.3. Now, this one's just broke in at 567,000 kilometers. So, not exactly a spring chicken, but so right off the hop, we can hear a little snap there. This one's here for a poor cold start condition. So, the first thing that I'm going to do, I know not everybody's got this, but I'm just going to check a couple of the regular things, obviously go through the codes, and I'm not getting a glow plug code, but I'm getting turbocharger boost pressure low and injector control pressure higher or lower than desired. So that's telling me that there could be some sort of a leak in there. Let me get some weird little open brake pedal, whatever circuits. We'll have a look at that. So I'm not overly worried about this number. This is the voltage of the injector pressure sensor. It seems about right at 0. And then we can see our IPR, our little dump valve on the pump there. It's sitting at, I guess that would be fully open. So first thing I like to check if it's having difficulty starting is the condition of the injectors. So I'm going to start this buzz test. So it's going to buzz all 8. 1, 2's a little weak, 3's good, 4's good, 5's weak, 6 is good, weak, good. Did we get an 8 there? I'm going to do that one more time. Kind of sounded like it was a bit of a dud thud there, wasn't it? Let's count that down. Together. 1. Okay, we're good. All right, so you can see we got a couple of injectors aren't quite firing properly there. So now we'll start a quick little visual. And the first thing that's jumping out at me is this boost tube is completely taped. So probably got a hole in it. So I'm thinking that we're going to maybe see what we can't do about finding that. And you can also see there's some funny business going on here. This is the boost pressure sensor. And I don't know why. It looks like it's been broken and they've tried to repair it. So we could be getting some leaks out of that for sure. So that's going to go straight over to the intake, and that's going to give us our absolute intake pressure. So we don't like to see these caps, these fuel filter caps. They're generally problematic. When I get down here a little bit more, I can see this one feed line. That looks like it's leaking. That could also give us a code. That could be something to do with our high pressure. What's this down here? We got a plug hanging out here that somebody didn't plug back in. And I can see a hole for it to go, so I'm just gonna plug that in for our, there we go. That's gonna make our fuel heater work. That's gonna help our cold start. And here's this ICP. Now, this little sensor here, they're problematic, and there's an update for these. So Ford makes, or somebody makes a new one. I think Ford sells a different one. We can tell that because this one kind of looks round, and the other one has more like a bigger nut sort of a thing. I think it's like 1.16" or something like that. So I think we're going to go ahead and I'm going to recommend replacing that. So I've got one of these audible light testers, right? So it's going to make a noise. Right now, I like to just kind of rest it. So as far as these two solenoids go, one of them's for the glow plugs, and then the other one's going to be for the intake heater, which is right up here. So I already did a little bit of poking around, and I can tell that that's not working. So these are ground signaled. So what we're going to get is we're going to get power, right? And we're going to see power on these. And then when this grounds, we're going to see power coming out of here. So what I'll usually do to test that relay is I'll just run a test lead to this ground, which by the way is loose, and I couldn't tighten it, so we're gonna have to replace this this battery connector here. So I'll put a lead over, right, and then I'm just gonna kind of manually excite that. See? Right, so I know that I'm getting power through there. Same thing with this one over here. Right, so I can hear that clicking, and if I rest my tester there, right? So when I did my test, I wasn't getting a ground signal to this one for whatever reason, but I was to this one, and it may be because it's just not cold enough, or I don't know, right? But I'm not going to start going after this relay because I can tell the relay's working just fine. I can excite the ground and it clicks, so there's nothing actually wrong with the relay. But when I do and that's just ground, I can let that float around. It's not going to hurt nothing. So let's rest this one back on here. And then I'm gonna just turn the key. And then I should hear that. See? Now I got another funny noise here. Hear that? That sounds to me like the fuel pump's running its prime cycle. I don't know, it's still doing it. But yeah, we're getting a weird little squealing noise. I don't know if that's out of the vacuum or if that's the fuel pressure somewhere. Got some sort of a little whine to it, but we'll have a look at that when we open that up. So right off the hop, we've got a few things that we can check. Now, the next thing that we're gonna end up doing is we're gonna go after this connector right here. There's a connector on either side that is actually the valve cover gasket it's got a pass through, so these wires can run through into where the injectors and the glow plug is on either side. And I'm gonna disconnect that, and I'm gonna use my meter, and I'm gonna ohm the glow plugs just to make sure that we're getting a signal through that connector, and our glow plugs are working. Now, usually when that connector goes bad, you'll hear like one side of the injectors drop off, and then the truck will run rough. And there's a couple of videos on YouTube, I think, called Fix Your Truck for a Quarter or whatever. Some guys will just jam a quarter in there and tighten up that connector, but I just generally like to replace the harness underneath there. So we'll just kind of recap a little bit. There's so much weird stuff on this thing, right? But definitely we're gonna go after the boost sensor. We're gonna check this tube here, take this off. We'll get all the other tubes off just to give ourselves some room that we're gonna need anyways. We're gonna change this fuel filter. We're gonna put some of that arch oil additive in, and that's gonna probably clear up those injectors, because we don't want to start putting piles of money into this thing. We just want to keep it moving. So yeah, you know, it's got a real nice big intake boot on there, and K&N filter, you know, which, you know, have been proven to be good for business. But so we could have some leaks or whatever in there, so we'll tighten all that up. And another thing that generally we'll do is, this is the high pressure oil reservoir right here. So basically there's a gear pump that brings up oil from the pan into this, and that's what's going to feed the high pressure pump that's just in behind here that supplies high pressure oil to the HUE injectors. So what I'll do is I'll take this little plug out and I'll put my suction tool in, and I'll suck this all out, because it seems to get a lot of garbage and gunk in there. And then I'll fill it up, and then I'll run it, drain it out, fill it up, run it, drain it out, about a liter at a time. And then my last fill, that's where I'm going to directly put that arch oil in, and then it's going to go like straight into the injectors, and it's going to clean those spool valves out. And then we're going to be able to probably, like, every time that I've put that stuff in on these, I'll hear those injectors start to liven up, right? So another small things that we'll look at too is we're just gonna check these boots here that go off the intake straight into the head. I'm gonna make sure that those are tight. The other thing we'll address is the exhaust back pressure valve. It's kind of way in the back there on the turbo. There's a little rod that comes out, and there's this little flap on the back side of the turbo that basically just, with oil pressure, when the oil pressure is thick, it'll close off the back of the turbo just to help the engine warm itself up faster. Now, that's a good thing for warming up the engine, but they tend to get stuck, or they'll be like halfway, and that little rod that sticks out of there that does the actuating, it has a seal in it and it pisses the oil out. So that's no good. And the kit from Ford Repair, that's like $300-400. So generally we just delete that and you know, like let it run, you know, fire it up, let it breathe, let it run. It takes a little bit longer to warm up, but you know, it is what it is, right? You know, we're keeping the oil in it sometimes is a little bit more important. So that's kind of my initial assessment. The next thing that I'll do is I'll start it, and then we're gonna run the computer glow plug test, and that's just gonna tell us for sure that it has a like at least connectivity, I guess we could say. So, oh, it's running another buzz test. So we're gonna let it do that anyways. This video will take a little bit longer to upload, but so be it. So now we're gonna look here. So when I crank this over, I need to see the injector pressure come up to 500. So we're glow plugging, right? We're gonna get as much glow plug as we can. Sometimes if it's not starting well, I'll glow plug it like 2-3 times. Right away. So that's not too bad, right? You can hear it's running rough. So let's do a quick cylinder contribution. Okay, so it's not warm enough. We need to have more oil temperature. So let's run the glow plug test. But it is definitely running rough. So it says you gotta kind of keep it up, right? Okay, so it passed it, so that's good. So that means that it's not seeing like it's not seeing that one of them's disconnected. So that's usually gonna tell me that little plug is okay. You know, it'd be nice if we be able to do our contribution with the cold oil. Let's see if it's gonna range here. Well, it is performing the test. So let's see if it's gonna call an injector or not. But I would say, like, the way that started up, we're probably not gonna see a lot of glow plug issues. We're gonna see injector issues, but we're still gonna take that plug off, and we're gonna ohm test each of those injectors. And I think the spec's like 0.3 to 0.5 or something like that we want to see, like a real low ohm value. And we're probably going to see at least one out. If we don't have to take it all apart, we're not going to take it all apart. And when I do change out the glow plugs, I like to remove the rocker arms, just so you can get in there and you don't have to fish everyone out with a magnet, and you can use a spinny tool and blow it all out correctly and everything. Yeah, but definitely it sounds like it's running a little bit on the rough side, eh? So I'm thinking that those Huey injectors are a little bit bunged up. Okay, so here we go. So we do got circuit contribution on 5 and 7. So, and I don't know, we'll look back at it, I'll buzz them again, but I bet you those are the ones that sounded really weak, right? So that's definitely a concern. Now when it's circuit contribution, right, it's usually going to be something in the circuit, but if that spool valve isn't opening all the way, then it'll call that circuit too. So it could be a dirty injector, but we're going to pull those plugs off, and we're going to have to pull that valve cover off now, right? 5 and 7, that's going to be on the same side, so that's good, right? So we'll have just the passenger side to rip apart, and yeah, we'll be able to kind of see what's going on in there, and decide how we're going to proceed on the repairs. But yeah, other than that, that's basically kind of how I go about the 7.3s and diagnosing and testing all that sort of stuff, which most of those things you can do with basic tools. Or I'm not sure if Forscan does it, but yeah, that's an option as well.